Hey guys, I wanted to start off by saying this is the first World of Warcraft video I've made since I started being active on this channel. This is a game I've been playing for almost 20 years now, and I'm extremely passionate about it, so I figured why not make a video from time to time on what's going on in WoW or what I'm up to within the game. I guess eventually the plan will be to have a separate channel for WoW specifically, but right now I'll keep it all in the same boat. Let me know what you think in the comments, and give the video a thumbs up if you want to see more WoW content. The elephant in the room today is the blue post that dropped yesterday afternoon announcing some large changes to Mythic Plus affixes coming in Season 1 of The War Within. Previously in interviews, it was implied that Blizzard wasn't going to put much time into Mythic Plus as a whole, and I think the community believed that the dungeon difficulty changes we got here in Season 4 of Dragonflight were pretty much going to be the end of it. Turns out that is not the case, and we now have 4 new affixes that I think are pretty interesting. So here I just want to take some time to go over the Mythic Plus affixes that were announced, as well as look into some other changes that were announced for Mythic Plus today. And then also towards the end, I'll kind of go into how I feel about all of the changes and Blizzard's updates and tuning and sort of how they've handled this whole War Within development cycle here as we get into beta and all that. First off, let's start with these new affixes for M+. We have a total of 4 new non-interactive affixes being added in the War Within. Non-interactive sounds exactly right. It's basically like if one of these affixes are active, it's always going to be active. You don't have a root attached to your ankle that stuns you if you don't run far enough. You don't have a mob that continuously casts a debuff that reduces your damage and healing done by up to 100% if your shaman forgot to bring Hex, and you don't have an angry piece of shit shade that smacks the shit out of you every 2 seconds. These affixes just constantly exist, so they're always active. The new affixes are Reckless, Thorned, Attuned, and Focused. Each of these affixes has a negative component that makes a certain type of non-boss dungeon mob do more damage, but then they also have a positive component that increases a specific damage type that players already do. The first one, Reckless, makes non-boss enemies without mana ignore some armor, but they also have reduced armor and then take 10% increased arcane damage. Thorned makes non-boss mobs without mana do physical damage when attacked, quite literally thorns, but then in turn they take 10% increased holy and shadow damage. Attuned makes non-boss mobs with mana do more magic damage, but also take more nature damage and quite a bit more bleed damage. And then lastly, Focused makes non-boss mobs with mana have more haste, but in turn take more frost and fire damage. I do think it's important to note here that I don't push high-level Mythic Plus. I definitely like to go for title at some point in my World of Warcraft career. However, I usually just get my portals for each dungeon and then pug a few levels higher than that for fun. That being said, just take my opinions and my thoughts here with a grain of salt with that in mind. At a glance, I do think I like these. I think at the level I play the game at, they're going to be a good addition, and the affixes that they will be taking the place of will make playing M+ a lot easier in pugs and require less overall group coordination. I think like most affixes, this isn't going to affect lower keys all that much, but going into like a big negative I think that will come with this is that your +10 weekly no lever keys are going to be a little bit more strict on who you invite on a given week. If you play a spec that doesn't do nature or bleed damage on an attuned week, there's a pretty solid chance that a good portion of groups doing a +10 or higher keys will want to fill a group based on their damage type for whatever affix is active that week. In that case, it would be attuned. Obviously, this isn't going to be every group, but I think there is enough elitism in the Mythic Plus group finder to where I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I think another issue that is going to come with this is going to be that this may favor some classes or specs much more than others. As a shaman main between elemental and enhance, I already know I can build my talents differently to appeal to 3 of these 4 affixes. Obviously, each spec is going to have the definitive best build that you'd want to play, but that being said, what if you play a class like Warrior that quite literally only does physical damage? I feel like on some weeks it's going to be a lot more exaggerated than others, but it's definitely going to be an issue in terms of some classes are going to feel this a lot more consistently than others will. One thing I've seen some chatter about is that this is Blizzard's attempt at killing the God comp that's been present at the top level of keys the past couple seasons, but I don't think that's really going to be the case. The best M+ players will always find out what is going to play best on a given season, and they're always going to optimize their comp to best fit what affixes are currently active. But in reality, I think that we're going to still see a mage and an Aug evoker in most key groups paired with whatever tank or healer is the best at that time. I guess a quick side note, I do want to highlight right now how insane high keys are this season in terms of class representation. If we look at plus 15 or higher keys, we see that at least one of 4 specs are in 50.9% of all timed keys. And then if we look at plus 20 or higher, the very high end, we can see that number jumps to 82.3% of keys have at least one of the 5 specs shown. Looking at classes overall, we can see that Mage, Priest, Demon Hunter, Druid, and Evoker make up 93.7% of timed keys. I wouldn't say this is indicative of balancing, but really just how insanely good these classes are at controlling an instance, especially when paired together. Last thing I want to say about this specific subject is that this comp that I just outlined actually has multiple classes in it that will benefit from multiple of these different affixes in terms of doing different types of damage. I'm looking at Mage and Druid specifically, but Demon Hunter and Priest are not left far behind in this instance. Back to the meat and potatoes here, Blizzard is now retiring 5 different affixes from the plus 4 tier for Season 1, just to accommodate these 4 new ones we're getting. The 5 that are getting retired are Afflicted, Incorporeal, Entangling, Storming, and Volcanic. They're also removing Spiteful from the plus 7 tier of affixes, and then leaving in Raging, Bolstering, Bursting, and Sanguine. Quickly, I do want to take a sec to point out the comedy in the fact that Blizzard just created Afflicted, Incorporeal, and Entangling, and now they're already getting removed. On top of that, I think in today's climate, we can just eliminate Sanguine and Bolstering. It's long overdue that we take those 2 affixes out back and nerf them like we did to Tindril. All of this being said, I don't think this is a terrible change, other than the fact that we still have to deal with Sanguine and Bolstering. I think at the level that the majority of players do Mythic Plus at, this will make little to no difference in how a key is actually played, and people shouldn't have any issues plugging into most groups and getting their weekly vault keys done. I am actually very interested, though, to see how this affects the top 0.1% of keys, though, and once the season starts, I'll be watching the leaderboards pretty closely to see how this actually affects things on a week-to-week basis. Before I do wrap up this video, I do want to talk about how I think Blizzard is doing a pretty good job with the development and showcasing of everything coming in the War Within. Hero talents are fucking awesome. I think that some are definitely much better than others, however, but they are working through it just like they did with the updated talent trees that they did for Dragonflight. And by launch, I think those were specifically pretty well balanced, with the exception of a few outliers that got love a bit later. We're also seeing a lot of baseline talent tuning and reworks for pretty much every class, except for Shaman and Hunter, but those should also be in the works. Blizzard has done a pretty good job at improving their process for developer and player relations since the backlash of Shadowlands, and it will be nice to see how this further improves moving forward. As for what's still to come, I'm excited to get some more playtime in on the beta, especially when Shaman gets its talent love that it is overdue for, and then also for the official release of the War Within on August 26th. But that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed watching, please go ahead, leave a like, and in the comments, tell me what spec you main in WoW and what your thoughts on the new Mythic Plus affixes are. If you want to catch me live, go ahead and follow me on Twitch, where I'm going to be live most evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic Tuesday.